Hello guys. Today we are going to have a quick look into your final Capstone project, which is also your project number 5, and this is going to be your last project. Let's get into it. This project is a kind of really amazing project related to a casting agency specifications. You are expected to build a casting agency system in which there is going to be some actors and there is going to be a producer, and there are going to be some casting roles in your database model. There are going to be some movies and actors and stuff like that, and you are expected to perform some major things like the things that you have learned so far. Let's just take a quick overview of your Capstone project, and then I will explain all the rubric requirements which are given to you by Udacity for your final project. Let's just take a look at the general specification. Your model basically will include at least two classes with primary keys, at least like two attributes each. Okay. And there are going to be like one to many or many to many relationship between classes. But that is optional. But creating relationships in a relational database is a good thing. If you are good with that, or if you are okay with that, then you should really go for creating relationships between those classes. Okay. These are like general classifications. We are not talking about any context of the project. So we are just talking about the general requirements. And your endpoints will include like there would be two get requests, like two get endpoints, where you would be able to get data, and there is going to be one post request and and one patch and one delete. There would be two endpoints from where you can get data, and then there would be one patch or update method, and one for post and one for delete. There would be total number of 5 endpoints in your application, there should be 5 endpoints in your applications with the given endpoint methods. Okay, and there are going to be roles implementations, and the roles will include at least there should be two roles with different permissions, so you have to manage all the policies and access management in your applications, as you have learned how to manage roles in your applications. That is going to be included in your implementation as well. The very next thing, we have learned about how the test cases run, how to do unit testing. That is also going to be a part of your development. The test cases will include at least one test for success behavior, of each endpoint. So if there are going to be 5 endpoints, then I believe there are going to be 5 test cases, each for one endpoint, each one test for each endpoint. One test for error handling for each endpoint. Like if there is any error comes up, then you should have written the test cases to handle those error scenarios. And 2 test cases for role-based access control for each role. So like if you have created 2 roles, then there should be at least 2 tests for each role. And you should have to write test cases to match the rubric requirements of your application. Now, if we talk about the project context, then the Udacity has given you a casting agency specification system. So, yeah. So the basic project context is there is going to be a casting agency model company, which is like you can say that is responsible for creating movies and managing and assigning actors to those movies. So there is going to be some roles and management, and there is going to be an admin who is like, which is producer, I believe in this case, who is like assigning the roles to the specific users. So you are an executive producer within the company and are creating system to simplify and streamline your process. So like let's say you are they say you are a producer, and you need to handle and streamline your whole agency model so that you can automate it or like digitalize the whole process. So that's why you are building this whole system. So now if we take a look at the models, like what kind of classes there would be. So there is going to be a movie class. The attributes of the movie class would be the title and release date. Okay, so there are going to be two attributes for the movie class, and there is going to be an actor class. Okay, so and actors would have a name and age and a gender. Okay, so there are going to be three attributes for an actor class. Okay, and of course we talked about the endpoints the of your final of your capstone project. So then there are going to be like five endpoints, for two for get methods or get requests, and three for each of post, delete, and patch. Okay, so yeah, now if there are two model classes, then of course there are going to be the relative endpoints as well. So you are going to create an endpoint for of a get endpoint for actors and movies as well. So you are expected to create an endpoint from where the front end would be able to get all the actors and all the movies. Okay, and the same for like to delete an actor and to delete a movie and to post or like create a movie or create actor. Okay, so like these are the expected endpoints which the Udacity expects you to create. Okay, and then there comes the role part. Okay, so in roles, so basically you are going to create so if there is an application or a casting agency, then of course there are going to be some roles. Like the leading role would be the executive producer, and then there would be some actors and yeah, just stuff like that. So basically there would be a casting assistant. So the limitations, or I would say the roles or the permissions actually, so the permissions that the casting assistant would have, so he can only view actors and movies. So that would be the permissions given to this role over here. So okay, so and you have to manage it, and you have to also you have to manage the permissions to the specific endpoints as we did in your coffee shop project. So yeah, and then there would be a casting director. Okay, so all permissions a casting assistant has, and this casting director would have all the permissions like this casting assistant had. Okay, so the casting director can also view actors and movies. Apart from that, he can also add or delete an actor from the database. Okay, so he can also manage actors basically. So yeah, that is something the casting director can do. Okay, and modify actors or movies. Okay, he can also update an actor name, actor age, actor gender, and he can also update movies as well. Okay, so and then there would be an executive producer. So this is, I would say, a leading role in this model company. So all permissions a casting director has. So basically now this executive producer is going to have all the permissions of these two. Okay, so and add or delete a movie from the database. So basically the casting director wasn't able to create a new movie. in the database. So you see, he was only able to modify it, but the executive producer would be able to create a new movie in the database as well. Okay, so that would be the leading role in this project context. So yeah, so these are the roles and access management that you have to create and manage. So, and you have already done it in your P3 project, so don't worry about it. And the last thing is you need to implement test cases to test your application. Okay, so one test for success behavior or each all the endpoints that you have created in your Flask application, you need to create a test case for each endpoint. Okay, so you need to implement the unit testing as well in this application. And one test for if you are testing the success scenario, then you have to write a test case for error handling. So like if any error comes up, then you have to write a test case for that scenario as well. Okay, and at least two tests for RBAC for each role. So let's say if there are three roles, then you have to write two test cases for each role to check if the roles and their access management is working fine or not. So that would be sum up to six test cases for your role and access control. Okay, so yeah, and that was kind of a general and quick review for your application. With that, the Udacity has also provided you with a GitHub starter code. So if you can just click on this link over here, that will navigate you to the startup or the Capstone starter code, which you can clone by yourself and then you can start up with. So we have these couple of files, okay, over here. So let's discuss all the files one by one. So in this starter code, they haven't given you any specific or any noticeable kickstart. So you have to, as it's your Capstone project, so you have to build all the implementation or all the things on your own. So yeah, as you can see, they have only created the simple functions or the basic Flask server. So yeah, so this is your app.py file in which you are going to write all your main code. Okay, and then there comes in the model.py file which has nothing in it. So you are going to create all your classes and models over here in this class, and then you can use migration technique to create a database from your model. And then there is your setup.sh file to run your or set up your whole application, and all your test cases would be in test app.py file. So you are going to write all your test cases in this file. So it's basically a basic code skeleton or project skeleton which you can use to start your application. Okay, so yeah, and if we discuss the project rubric requirements, then they asked you to follow their requirements. Like they provided you how your project would be evaluated. So yeah, so these are the things that you need to implement in your application. So let's just take a quick overview on the rubric requirements. So we have discussed how your API principles or how your current application is going to work. So you are going to have two models, and within those two models, each class would have the following endpoints, following number of endpoints. Okay. So, and yeah, they have also mentioned to implement the app.error handler decorator so that your error responses would be formatted and it would be easy to handle your errors in your Flask application. Other than that, they asked you to implement the JWT and asked you to implement the requires auth decorator just like you did in your project 3. the coffee shop project, you have implemented the requires auth decorator. So yeah, and that require auth decorator obviously going to get the authorization token from your request header, and then it's going to decode your JWT using your secret key, and then it's going to verify if the JWT token isn't expired, or like if it's a valid token. Otherwise, it's going to return with the respective error message. Or like it's if it's expired, then it's going to return with an like something with a reasonable error message. So yeah, and the next thing is the project includes at least two different roles that have distinct permissions for actions. So these roles and permissions are clearly defined in the project.readme file. Students can like reference the casting agency specs in the specification section of the rubric as an example. So like you can take this model as a specification or as a baseline project model. So yeah, you are given with the basic rubric requirements of this project. Okay, and the next thing is we have already discussed that you have to write uh, test cases in your application. So at least one test for expected success and error behavior for each endpoint using the unit test library of Flask. So yeah, and there would be two test cases for each role in your application to test out if your role or RBAC is working fine or not. So yeah, and the very next thing is you need to implement the auth0 as it's a third-party integration or third-party authentication. So you need to implement the auth0 in your Flask application as you did in your coffee shop project. Okay, so you need to implement that. And within the auth0, you can also implement your access role management. So that is something you can do as well, and with that you have to so basically your JWT token is going to is going to contain your role access policy or role access information. So that is something you can implement in auth0. So basically your project includes the third party integration which you can do with the auth0. So okay, so you have already done that in your project 3, like coffee shop project. So I guess there is no need to worry about these things now. Okay, so the next thing is you need to deploy your application on Heroku. So if you don't know about Heroku, so let me just give you a quick overview. So Heroku is a cloud deployment platform, so where you can deploy your full stack applications with the database. So of course, in this application, you are going to have a database, so you can deploy your whole application on Heroku, basically. So yeah, that is something you can do over here. So you have already learned about Heroku, how to deploy a simple Flask application in your last module. So I believe you know the exact overview of how Heroku works. So yeah, and your project should be public, and it should be publicly available, or the endpoint should be public so that anyone can access your application, and like it should be live. Okay, and yeah, and there are like some code quality and documentation. So they demand you to write some clear code according to this PEP 8 style guide. So if you don't know it, just give it a quick overview or a read. That would be good for you. So the variable and function names should be clear, and your endpoint should be perfectly named, like the name should define what this endpoint is gonna do. Okay, and you should comment your code properly, and if there is any secret keys, then you should store them perfectly safe within the environment variables. Okay, so they shouldn't be revealed to any common user. Okay, so that's for application security. Okay, and application can be run with no errors and responds with the expected results. Okay, API test suite for endpoint, and RBAC, behavior run without errors or failures. Okay. So again, the variable names are logical, code is dry and well commented, where code complexity makes them useful. Okay. And the last thing is the document project description in the README file, including the following information. So, and that information is like, so you can give it a read to your README file, which includes a bit of motivation for the project, like the URL location for the hosted API, and the basic stuff like project dependencies and local deployments and detailed instructions of the scripts and authentication, how to set up your project, and how you can use the RBAC control or the documentation for that thing. So just give it a quick review to your readme.md file, and that would be pretty good for you. So yeah, basically these are all the requirements. So if you haven't started working on your project, then you should give a quick review to all this section over here. It's going to define clearly how your application is going to be deployed on Heroku, what are the requirements, and like what is a casting agency model, which is described over here as it's an optional. You can choose any project of your choice. So yeah, I guess there is more about it on your Capstone project. So okay, bye, take care, wish you good luck.